don't think it's too controversial to say that we live in some pretty interesting times. Way back in 2019, I published a video about how to route any device on your network through a VPN, and I think it's high time for an update here in 2026. While a VPN isn't strictly a security tool, it can help keep prying eyes away from your internet traffic, or route you through to a different part of the world. Today I'm going to show you exactly how I run a VPN here in my house, and how easy it is to set up on any device that you own. Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff. While the internet, and specifically YouTube, is full of creators promoting VPNs as the be-all end-all for all of your data security needs, this isn't one of those videos. In fact, there is no sponsor for today's video. I just wanted to go over what a VPN is, what a VPN isn't, how I use one, and show you how to set one up on your own network. While this video does not have a sponsor, I will be using NordVPN in this tutorial, a service that I've run adverts for as recently as last year, so conflate whatever conflict of interest you want there. But it's not the money that's making that decision for me here. I've been running NordVPN as a customer since 2016, long before I even started creating content on YouTube, and even longer before I ran my first ad for Nord in 2020. I use NordVPN because I like the service, I trust their policies and claims of zero logging of any data, and they are one of only a few VPN companies that regularly allow their server and client source code to be audited by third parties to ensure that those claims are accurate. They also allow connecting from third-party clients like OpenVPN, and that's going to be key to how I'm using them here in this video. So what is a VPN, or a virtual private network? Honestly, the term VPN is different to different people and different depending on the different use cases that you're applying it to. When I worked as an IT administrator, a VPN was what I used to connect to my office network or customer sites remotely. Connecting would give my laptop an IP address inside of our corporate network, and I could interact with internal servers and services as if I was physically inside the building. A VPN is simply a tunnel that moves your traffic from one location to another location. So if I were here at my house and connected to a corporate VPN network, it would be as if I was connecting a cable directly into my laptop on that corporate network. What a VPN doesn't do is encrypt your traffic once you leave that tunnel. It's essentially like plugging in my laptop in my corporate office, but if I use the internet, I'm still using the internet from that corporate office, even though I happen to be here at my house. A commercial VPN, like NordVPN or Surfshark, is the same concept but a little bit different. Rather than allowing you to access a closed internal corporate network, they route your traffic from your local internet service provider and spit you out somewhere else in the world as if you are physically in another place. My device is given an IP address from another region, and in theory will allow me to access internet sites or services that are available in that region. This is great for getting around region locks from streaming services or watching out-of-network content like sporting events or shows that aren't available to you locally. Both corporate and commercial VPNs do operate in much the same manner as one another. Your local device is connected to a server via an encrypted tunnel, and all traffic that you generate or receive is routed through that remote server. Now, normally your local ISP would handle routing of all your traffic to a destination. So if I wanted to use my laptop to go to google.com, my laptop is connected to Wi-Fi, which goes to my ISP, and then my ISP would route me to google.com. With a VPN, your ISP can only route your traffic to the remote VPN server and has no knowledge of any additional routing that happens beyond that point. Now, a lot of VPN adverts will say that they keep your traffic safe, so if you're using Wi-Fi at a coffee shop from your laptop or your cell phone, they encrypt all your traffic to keep you safe from snoopers who might be there in the coffee shop. That attack doesn't work anymore. In the days of internet gone by, most traffic existed on the internet without any encryption whatsoever, meaning an ISP or a nefarious ne'er-do-well on your local network could inspect your traffic that went through and would be able to not only see the site that you were visiting, but the content that you were viewing and potentially passwords that you entered into websites. But nearly every web page now that you visit utilizes HTTPS, that is HTTP secure, and encrypts all traffic between you and the websites that you're accessing. Even without a commercial VPN, your ISP or anyone on your local network can only see what sites that you visit based on either the IP address or DNS queries that you're getting from your ISP. They cannot actually see the content that you're viewing or the text that you're entering and sending out. So why would you want to use a commercial VPN service? The most common uses, like I mentioned, are to virtually place your device in a region that you're not currently in to access services not available to you, or to access content that is not available in your region. Let's say you live in a state that recently banned adult content, or maybe you want to watch a TV show that streams for free in the UK but is unavailable in your local area. Maybe your local sports team has a local blackout agreement but is being broadcast to another region. Through a VPN, you can spoof all of your traffic to originate from somewhere else, giving you access to that region's content. As for hiding all of your internet activity from prying eyes, keep in mind that your encrypted tunnel only exists between you and the VPN server itself. Virtually moving your laptop to Canada doesn't mean you're exempt from laws in either Canada or in your country of origin. And anyone who's ever inspected device cookies or advertiser tracking cookies knows that there are other ways to track your activity and identify you individually based on your device. A commercial VPN obfuscates some of your identifiable traits, but it doesn't eliminate them. A VPN isn't a free pass for torrenting or other illegal activity either, especially if you're logged into a browser or any other services. A VPN can help you hide, but it's also not a silver bullet, nor is this video recommending that you go out and torrent all of your favorite shows. But if anonymity is your goal, having your traffic originate from somewhere that's not your house is a pretty good start. Now, using a commercial VPN on most devices is simple enough. Most commercial VPNs have apps that you can download, log in, and then route your traffic to whichever parts of the world that they have servers in. If you simply have a smartphone or a laptop, an app works great in most cases. But what about a smart TV or a set-top box, a Steam Deck, a VR headset? Or what if you just don't want another app and a virtual network adapter on your PC? Here at home, if I want to send a device through a VPN tunnel, I use what's called a VPN gateway, and it comes with a couple of very distinct advantages. First, it means that any device on my network can connect to the VPN, and none of them actually need the app installed. The configuration is all on the network side, and your device simply accesses the internet completely none the wiser. Of course, one of the worst things that can happen when using a VPN to obscure your activity is your device disconnecting and all of your traffic suddenly going directly to your ISP. Using a VPN gateway will also prevent this from happening, as if the VPN goes down for any reason, all traffic is halted until the VPN goes back online, preventing your traffic from simply going to your ISP completely unencrypted. For as long as I can remember, I've had what I call a VPN gateway running on my network. My favorite method is to create a virtual machine and point any client to it to access the VPN. The VM handles connecting to the VPN itself, automatically routes traffic from other devices to the VPN, and will keep traffic from going to the internet as a whole if the VPN disconnects. And all of this is completely invisible to the client device itself. While I'm going to be using a VM for this, there's no reason you can't run a VPN gateway on a Raspberry Pi or some other piece of hardware. We'll be using Ubuntu 24.04 today, but instructions should be nearly universal for most Linux distros. A lot of the commands here you'll also want to copy and paste, so I will have full written instructions available down in the video description. To start off, I'm going to create a new Ubuntu VM in Proxmox. For me, I'm going to set up 4 CPU threads and 6 GB of memory, though you can likely get by with just 1 or 2 CPU threads and as little as 2 GB, as all we're doing is moving packets from one place to another. It's not exactly strenuous work. You'll need to set up a static IP address for the VM, which you can configure during the Ubuntu install or set up afterward if you're installing on an existing machine. In my case, I'm going to set up an IP address of 10.0.0.9. Also during the install, I'd recommend installing OpenSSH Server, as you'll need to copy over and paste quite a bit of text in this tutorial, and it's way easier to do that over an SSH session. Once Ubuntu is installed, go ahead and run sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade to make sure that the system is completely up to date. And I'd recommend rebooting once the updating is complete. There are only a couple packages that will need to make all of this work. From apt, you'll want to install OpenVPN, Unzip, CA certificates, and OpenSSH Server if you didn't do that during the initial setup. Once those are installed, you'll want to navigate to /etc/OpenVPN, which is where we'll be placing all of our configuration files and scripts. For NordVPN, you'll also want to grab the OpenVPN configuration files available as a zip file from their website. If you're using a different service, many offer similar configuration packages, and setup will be very similar to what I'm showing here. From the OpenVPN directory, you'll want to wget the ovpn.zip file. Once downloaded, run sudo unzip openvpn.zip, which will expand into 2 directories, ovpn-tcp and ovpn-udp. From there, we're going to create a script that will connect to NordVPN via OpenVPN. Type in sudo nano connect.sh to create the file. Inside, we're going to type out this string right here to launch OpenVPN, complete with the Nord server that we want to connect to, as well as passing through our username and password authentication. Now, the best practice here is to embed your username and password in a separate file that cannot be accessed by anyone with access to the server. Bonus points if you encrypt files on the server as well. Create a new file by typing sudo nano auth.txt. Here you'll enter your username and password on 2 separate lines. Depending on your VPN service, the username and password may not be the same that you use to log into their first-party app. For NordVPN, you'll need to look up the service account credentials on your account page. With those 2 files created, you should be able to test out the VPN connection and authentication. Make sure the connect script is executable by typing in sudo chmod +x and then connect.sh. Then just run connect.sh. If everything is working, you should see something similar to this output, where the VPN establishes a connection and gives you an IP address. If all of that checks out, hit Ctrl-C to exit, and we can finish setting up the server to actually route traffic through to the VPN. Now, the key to all of this working, that is creating a VPN tunnel, but then routing traffic from the devices on your network to use the tunnel, actually comes down to using Ubuntu's built-in firewall. Using it, we accept traffic from your local network to go through the VPN, and disallow any traffic from being forwarded if the VPN is down for any reason. Luckily, the hard work here is already done in the written instructions. We're going to copy and paste all of the firewall rules into a new file. Still in the etc/openvpn directory, type in sudo nano iptables.sh, and then paste in these firewall rules. You will need to make one change to this file, and that's defining what clients on your network are allowed to talk to the Ubuntu VM. Under the section labeled "Make sure you can communicate within your own network," enter your subnet range in both lines. In my case, that's 10.0.0.0/24. With that entered in, you can save and then exit the file. We'll also need to make the iptable script executable, so type in sudo chmod +x iptables.sh. And finally, we'll create a script to run everything with a single command, and then we'll create a service to make it all run automatically. Again, here create a new file with sudo nano start.sh and paste in this simple script right here. Essentially, this runs the firewall configuration, pauses for 10 seconds to ensure that these settings are applied, and then establishes our VPN tunnel connection. And with that, we should have everything ready to not only connect to our VPN and route traffic, but also make this entire system completely automatic. So, let's make it automatic. Start off by creating a new service file by typing in sudo nano /etc systemd system and then vpn gateway.service. Then we're going to paste in this string of text right here. This creates a simple service that will run at system's boot and run the start.sh script to get everything up and running. If that all looks correct, go ahead and save and then close and exit the file. And now here's the part that makes it all automatic. Type in sudo system control enable VPN gateway, which will automatically turn on this service when Ubuntu boots up. At this point, you can either reboot the VM, or you can type in sudo system control start VPN gateway.service to run the VPN. And that's it. Your VPN tunnel is now up and running, and you can configure any device on your network to push its traffic through it. The way you connect to this is pretty darn simple as well. You change the default gateway of any device to the Ubuntu VM. So in my case, if I wanted my MacBook to connect, I'm going to set a static IP on my MacBook and then set the gateway address as 10.0.0.9 instead of my Unify firewall, which is 10.0.0.1. Now, most devices, to set up a custom gateway address, you'll also need to set up a full static IP address as well. That's the case on Windows, Mac OS, as well as most smartphones and tablets, be they iOS or Android OS. Set an IP address, and then just set the gateway address as your VPN gateway. You can also set up a dedicated Wi-Fi network or VLAN that utilizes the VPN for traffic. So the DHCP on your server would dole out the VPN address rather than its own gateway address. Simple enough for Ubiquiti gear along with most home lab or enterprise DHCP servers. To test out if the VPN is working, the easiest way to see if you're going through the tunnel is to check your external IP address. From a web browser, you can go to ipconfig.me or similar sites to see your external IP address. When connecting through the VPN, that address should change from what your ISP has given you. But one of the most important features of this system is that it also blocks traffic entirely if your VPN goes down for any reason. You can test this out pretty easily by sending out a ping from your client device and then disconnecting the VPN on the server. Your traffic on your client should stop dead in its tracks as soon as the VPN goes offline, and then it should automatically start back up again when the VPN comes back. This is a very important feature if you're using a VPN to hide your actual IP address, as you don't want a hiccup in your VPN to expose any of your internet traffic. Now, one downside to this VPN gateway is, by default, we're essentially hard-coding the VPN to a single destination. So let's say I set up my VPN to connect out of Vancouver, BC, or London, UK. That's the only server that VPN is going to try to connect to, and I can't dynamically change that to change my region. I can't simply open the first-party VPN app on my laptop and say, hey, I feel like connecting to Toronto right now. I have to go onto the server and change the configuration file to change the server that I'm connecting to. But on the plus side, it also automatically connects and drops traffic when the VPN is not connected, which for how I use VPNs works a bit better for me. And that's a brief look at how I keep some of my data away from prying eyes and keep my IP address hidden when I'm doing things like filming videos with an exposed external IP address, or streaming shows and sporting events that aren't available in my region from any of my local carriers. You don't need a VPN to keep your data and your passwords safe from thieves, but there are still a ton of reasons you might want to run one out of your house. A full written tutorial on this whole process is available down in the video description for how to get a VPN gateway up and running for yourself. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. If you like free content like this and want to help support this channel, there are a couple of ways you can do that. Head on over to patreon.com/craftcomputing, where as little as $1 a month gets you access to the Craft Computing Discord server. You can chat directly with myself, as well as join the awesome community that hangs out over there. Or visit craftcomputing.store for our official merch. We've got pint glasses, stone coasters, bottle openers, all designed and made right here in-house. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys. Beer for today is from Ninkasi Brewing down in Eugene, Oregon. It is their experimental IPA, clocking in at 6.5%. This one's a little bit interesting because it's never the same beer twice. Their experimental IPA is literally a random mix of hops that kind of go through their brewery, and it changes every single batch. It's a lot of fun if you like IPAs. It's even more fun if you have one of my nucleated pint glasses, available from craftcomputing.store. I like this version. I wish this version would become a regular. I've had the experimental IPA so many times through the years. It always is vastly different from one version to the next. This one's super good. This one is a very springtime IPA, and it's my favorite type of IPA, other than fresh hop. Springtime IPAs, they're bright, they're a little bit floral, they're citrusy, but they're the sweeter citrusy, not the sour citrusy. Think less like blood orange and grass, and think a little bit more like honeydew melon and cantaloupe. They're just a little bit sweeter. They're a little bit more approachable. They're still bright without being like heavy-handed or overbearingly bright. It's a nice, crisp, clean, semi-sweet without being too bitter IPA. And it's just downright delicious. This one's good.